think we're recording over here too, guys. So yeah, we are live. We got a few viewers already. Welcome to Fear and Loving. We're gonna get a set up over here for a second.
Oh.
Joe, I'm about to. You gotta do a verse. All right, a few more minutes here, guys.
I always look the least cool in every setup I'm in. Like everybody's got better dance moves, better stuff behind them, better hair. Well, I gotta upgrade it. It's unbelievable. I try to rock the Fila, thinking that maybe it doesn't.
You guys sound correct. Like I can't.
Gotta get it in where you fit in.
Expect.
That's okay.
All right, guys. So I hope you guys are ready for the holiday episode here. I'll turn this down. So this is the holiday 2020 episode of Fear and Loving. We've been doing this all year. Not often enough, but whenever I sit down with my friends here and do this, I'm always like, it's a whole nother type of feeling and energy. I wish I did it every day. It'd be nice. But yeah, welcome back, Rue Johnson and Joe Nice. And Chris Foltz, thank you for joining us this week for the first time.
So honored.
From your immaculate studio there. And today we'll be doing the 2021 wish list. I think. Yeah. So, and you know, you guys, we've had a couple days to kind of chew on a few of these things that we'll be touching on for next year that we're going to be hoping to see. But let's go ahead and everybody just, we'll start with Chris and everybody can just say hello with opening statements. They didn't know there was going to be opening statements. We did.
I had no idea about the opening statements, Richard, but I'm going to give it to you. All right. I'm Chris Foltz. I spend my daytime rocking the streets of cannabis-related marketing, but my real passion lies in social justice, social equity, social enterprise, all the things that this awesome group of people talk about on a regular basis in real action. So I'm thankful to be part of the conversation. That's all there is to it. So I'll pass that along to you, Richard.
Yeah, Root. Say what up. Hi.
Hello, everyone. I didn't know we were doing opening statements, so I don't have anything specifically prepared, but I am excited to be here with all of you fine folks. I feel like the best political conversations that I have happen in this space, and it's nice to actually have them instead of everyone just, with a megaphone inside of their echo chambers. So it's cool to be, around you guys again. And, and I guess in my day-to-day, I also do cannabis marketing. And when there's the music industry, I am a rap anthropologist. We do shows, but that hasn't turned yet. So
this is amazing.
Sounds so awesome.
We're work together somehow.
Soon, hopefully.
Okay. Joe, okay. Nice scarf.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Joe Nice, couple people know who I am. I've played a few shows. I've been to a few places. I've sold a few records with the record label Gourmet Beats. Got a bit of education, a couple of master's degrees under my belt. Right now, and again, I didn't know we were going to be doing opening statements either, but since we're doing opening statements, Rich Ranch, you said, hey, nice scarf. As you probably already know, this is a keffiyeh. Keffiyeh is a typical Palestinian scarf that is worn to show solidarity in Palestine. And part of the reason why we consistently and quite honestly, and unfortunately, infrequently do these conversations is because we want to make sure that we, and been saying this on my conversations, is that we raise the horizon of aspiration and we deepen the well of inspiration with every conversation. And that's what we're going to aim to do tonight. And part of the reason why I have this scarf on is to show solidarity with our Palestinian brothers and sisters. And there's also to make sure that we show solidarity to all marginalized people across the global diaspora, whether it's Uyghur Muslims in China, whether it's Black people or indigenous people or other people of color in North America and South America, whether it's darker skinned Africans in Africa, whether it's the Rohingya
Humanity.
that are dealing with a humanitarian crisis in Myanmar, whether it's the babies and children that are being left to pasture and die in Yemen. We must stand with our brothers and sisters who are oppressed and downtrodden across the world. And this scarf is my way of showing that. This rubber duck that I have here is part of the rubber duck revolution in Thailand. That's what the people in Thailand are fighting for. They're fighting for freedom against their monarchy. They're wearing large inflatable rubber ducks around their bodies. This rubber duck is my way of showing solidarity also with our Thai brothers and sisters that are fighting for freedom. And we're also going to stand with every single farmer in India, all 250 million of them that have gone on strike to fight a neoliberal government against Narendra Modi and his neoliberal bullshit. So we're going to stand with everybody that needs to have stand. We don't stand behind them. We don't stand in front of them. We stand with them. We stand alongside them.
Ahoy.
I've never learned more in a shorter period of time in my life than I learned from that. I mean, I got some impressive stuff, Joe.
Man, thank you, brother. There's more.
I'll just touch on the fact that, that is the space we're creating here. Sometimes I feel like those of us who join Fear and Loving and are in these conversations, we've been working our ass off. We do it during the day or during the week. We work all day. We just jump in here. We're going to go back to work afterwards. It can be hard to remember almost exactly what am I going to bring to the table, but everybody's going to bring to the table here a love of people and anti-oppression and anti-corruption. These are the things that we believe in. And that's why we're doing this, So, I'm going to kind of just lay the landscape. We're going to be touching on a few points. I'm open to whatever. The goal here is to discuss what our viewers and the people out there, our people, let's say in America for today, but across the world as well, are wishing is going to happen. Will happen in 2021. This was a difficult year. So what is it that the people need, and what are we hoping that we can see? I mean, I think a lot of it, it's hard to say if we'll see, how it'll go, but I think a few points: stimulus, as well as vaccines. Apparently that's happening in 2020 all of a sudden. Justice for Black people in this country. I mean, I want to spend some time bringing that topic back up. I see a lot of people believing in that and still wanting to be doing that with their time, I'm curious to see where what we have in store for that next year, and healthcare as well. I don't know the exact figure right now, but I mean there was a lot of people without healthcare before COVID started. I believe that there is more now, and so we can touch on a little bit of that. So I'm thinking maybe we'll just do it in that order, I guess. So for me, I've been a little perplexed. In terms of stimulus, I've been a little perplexed in just observing what other nations that are, powerful and wealthy and, doing what, the U.S. does ultimately on that level, to see the kind of support that they're able to provide for their people financially. And why is that a thing for them and not really something that's for us? I mean, we can't even get, a second stimulus check. We can't get answers around. I mean, the worst part about it is I myself am fortunate to have moved into a situation where I no longer need my pandemic unemployment as a small business for now, at least. And so that's great and everything. But I know a lot of people who don't have anything to do. And I think it runs out in a week. I mean, why leave it up to the wire? Tell us whatever it is, it's going to be a month before it happens, because I guess I'm just feeling a little anxious about the numbers of people who will be evicted and, the numbers of people who won't be able to eat come early next year if this doesn't go right. So I'll open it up to that, I think, for now. So if anybody had something burning inside them or thought around that.
I'll admit something this week that I found to be interesting. I had a business years ago. I had a business partner. Ultimately, the business closed. There was still outstanding tax, the proverbial thing. In business, the tax get applied to me. From that point on, I basically made no money. So it's interesting how they put out stimulus, and there's so many gaps, right? You know, some people don't necessarily know where to put their address in. The week after you get a stimulus, you get a bill in the mail from the government saying that you owe past due taxes, or you may find out that some expense went up higher. I'm wondering, with all this money going towards the stimulus, and I'm all about it, does it actually get into the communities that need it most? Because I'm seeing all these news reports of rich people that have got stimulus. $1 million just went. I mean, I don't know who it was, maybe Peyton Manning, one of these NFL quarterbacks. They got like $1 million of stimulus money that went to their business that they had. And I'm all about it if it trickles down. But is there checks and balances on this new process?
I'm pretty sure we have seen absolutely no from day one this year with stimulus. I mean, it's not like it's not like they're hiding it. It's I don't know.
So why would they pause everything? Like, as the government, pause collections on people. You know, like they got my taxes this year, right? As an individual. And I can imagine I had something to turn taxes in for the first time in years. So many people didn't. So people that may be benefiting from the stimulus may have past government debt or something. So if they're collecting upon that at the same time as they're stimulating, it seems to be canceling it out. And when you don't see people in some of the markets out there actually ever getting paid, being in the cannabis industry, we're prohibited from all of that stuff, PPE, all of these type of things, which mean a lot of these new brands in these states with social equity programs for cannabis and all that. Not only is there no money in the field, but some of the people that can help these brands start once they get awarded the licenses, they don't even have enough money to keep people employed. And it's somewhat sad, but there's probably a bigger tragedy with it not getting into the actual communities that need it.
I think, Chris, you bring up excellent points and eloquent points also. I think the major reason why the money is not getting to the communities that need it, it's because representation of those communities is not willing to put up the political fight in order to make sure the resources get to those underserved and impoverished communities. And we're seeing this now, and I know we're going to eventually transition to healthcare, but we're eventually seeing this now. There's a large fight right now that you're seeing on social media with activists, and quite honestly, Jimmy Dore has been saying, hey, look, progressives in the House, hold your vote up for Nancy Pelosi to prevent her from becoming House Majority Leader. Speaker of the House, unless she puts a floor vote up for Medicare. For Medicare for all. And we're seeing who's going to do this and who's not. And that sort of political conflict, that willingness to fight for your people, it's not only lacking in healthcare, but it's lacking in terms of economic development for impoverished and underserved communities. So that's also part of the reason why we're not seeing this stimulus money go into areas like the south side of Chicago, or the west side of Baltimore, or south central Los Angeles, or the entire state of California, where you got homeless people under every bridge, under every overpass, and an entire neighborhood of 10 cities in Skid Row. We have a representative government and a representative democracy. Where are people that represent the people who need representation the most? The Bible says the least of thee. Who's going to stand up for the least of thee?
You don't see much standing up happening politically. I don't, Bernie is like I think that's why I flocked to him like a mosquito or like a fly to the flame. You know, I'm just like, okay, I have observed you rolling your sleeves up and doing some shit for people. It's like, if there were others, I would be finding my way into supporting them. But
I feel like it's also it's the systems as well, which I think is what Bernie is talking about. You know, it's the systems are not set up for things to work for the people. And the systems are not set up for the government to take care of its people, which is completely insane, because that's why there are taxes in the first place, right? That's why that I feel like that idea of representation is so important, because the kind of extreme poverty that exists in a place like Los Angeles, is unreal when you consider that, their representative is like the Speaker of the House, and that kind of thing is preposterous, but it has become, textbook examples of how the government rules this republic, that we live in. And I also agree that the bigger problems we're going to see are going to come from when, eviction moratoriums run out, when unemployment runs out. They haven't even have the news on the television. They haven't said a word about when there's going to be a stimulus COVID deal. And when that happens, what will be included in it, and how we are creating space and real financial and economic stability for communities that need it. Meanwhile, we have insanely bloated police budgets. And, and here in Denver, for example, they're wanting to spend $16 million on new body cams, that whatever evidence is going to be seen and however it will be seen, whoever collects that data. The point is, city council passed the budget for that amount of money. And that's happening all over this country. These police budgets are becoming more and more bloated and inflated, and our communities are suffering for it, in that they are over policed and completely completely disadvantaged when it comes to true resources. And those are things that are not going to change with Joe Biden being the president, And I think that's in some way. What?
Drop in the bucket.
A drop in the bucket. And also, like, he's hella pro police anyway. So, like, but the point still remains that communities are going to suffer. And meanwhile, all of our supposed representatives are running around just hanging out with their dicks in their hands,
So let's
Richard, she brings up a good point just on the police thing. I think I just want to touch on this. I'm a son of 2 police officers, right? And I've also been in jail for being a felon. Okay, so I didn't necessarily follow or tote that family line. But what I think is interesting, you brought up Denver, right? And the $16 million that's for tasers and body cams. The reason why they're pushing it, as you know, your city or Denver was one of the first people, I think in 2015 or something, that passed the body cam law. And the whole argument to spend $16 million is that they don't auto record, right? And the problem with auto recording in the situation is that, you hit the button and it starts recording. And there's plenty of police departments around the country that have been able to manage using the technology they have versus spending $16 million more, when I believe the mayor in Denver only wants to put $3 million towards alternative policing efforts. That doesn't even make sense to me. And to me, if a police officer cannot hit the record button on themselves over and over and over, that police officer should be fired, right? That should be a policy. It shouldn't be a $16 million additional expense.
They're very soft on these people.
Yeah, there's a responsibility.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. There is a responsibility. And again, I think that we go into so much of this with like people thinking that police officers should not like be able to walk and chew gum, which is ridiculous. Like, you guys carry fucking guns. Okay. So you should be able to like maneuver and do these things. But I said all that to say the point is still remains about, community, I brought up the police because I'm saying that there is the money. And this kind of, to Joe's point, the extreme poverty juxtaposed against the extreme wealth that exists in Los Angeles. For one example, I mean, those examples also exist in New York. It exists in Miami. It exists in Chicago. That kind of dichotomy is what this country is textbook used to. And I think that continues to be the big thing that keeps the systems. We have to dismantle all of the systems. And until there is a system that would support, all the Bernies, all the Elizabeth Warrens, all the, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, like all of the Ayanna Presleys, that's the, ice cream world. Yeah.
That's the squad.
You brought up ice cream too, Rue. I think it's crazy how Nancy Pelosi got away with showing $25,000 refrigerators and $12 pints of ice cream. On my fattest day, I've never ate ice cream that luxurious.
I was like, wow, Nan. Nancy did foul things during the pandemic, but it's just like it's just unreal, but it's not just it's not it's the culture of the haves and the have-nots, because this is also happening with like celebrity culture. There's like, Cardi B is tweeting about buying an $88,000 purse and getting dragged on the internet as a result. Like, girl, read the room. Like, niggas is, I don't even like people. It's
people
bad. Bad.
That's dumbass shit. That's not good.
Down bad. Like, read the room. What is wrong with you?
I'm gonna just take us a second here, and I think we have a couple comments from some of our viewers. Kensington Von Badger, he had a few things to say. Large companies and the people who can retain attorneys got a lot of it because they had the ability to file the paperwork the fastest. I know he is studying law out there. Also, that he thinks the problem is the Democratic Party doesn't really have a unified front. Some of the party thinks single-payer health care is a bad idea. The other part of the party wants to move for it. Republicans seem more unified in their opinions. Absolutely. God, how is it that that's the case? It's just,
Richard, Rance, when I look at that statement right there, there's never been a more true statement. I was just on an interview this weekend. And, for those of you who don't know, I come from Republican Party politics, right? To end up in a room like this where I'm excited to be in is not necessarily where the Republican Party starts out. And through that process, I went to jail as a Republican leader, came out as a Democrat follower. And, pretty much most people that experience life from another perspective end up making that change. And what I noticed is the Republicans have all the organization, right? They have all that in place. They don't really have the people, and the people they have is kind of built around a base. The Democrats, they have all the people, they have the reach and everything, but the organizational structure is built around an apparatus that doesn't allow those people to kind of work their way up towards the top, so thus it kind of stays status quo. And, I'm so thankful to see both sides, but also we have the ability to make changes just by looking at the lack of organization. So a well-organized third party fronts, a well-organized, like what you guys are doing in Denver, Rue, with the Creative Alliance down there. I saw all these creative things that come out that kind of describe issues. That is on par with what big dollar initiatives have coming out. So that's kind of evening the playing field for information. And that's really one of the first steps, because when other people have all the budgets in the world, $100 million to market something in a Senate race, it's almost impossible to get people's eyes, except for people that unite people like you guys and actually put out material that matters and that changes eyes. Half my statistics I've learned from looking at stuff Rue Johnson posted on her Facebook. Real talk.
Well, I think that we have moved, just keeping track here for us, because I do want to make sure we're touching on everything. I think we have moved from stimulus into, a little bit of the topic of, we mentioned police. So, I just am curious, like, what can we expect in 2021? Like, can we expect positive changes to come from the protest movement of 2020 and from the fight for Black people's justice and all the like, or what are, it's not feels pretty quiet, I suppose, comparatively. And it also just, maybe I watched this election just kind of just steamroll over everybody's thought process and like the little bit of our lives that we have to put towards social things and politics and whatever. It was just like, is Trump going to stick around? I think we're just like, and so now we're on the other side of that. So that's what I'm curious, and maybe we can.
I've for as long as we have been doing these conversations, and quite honestly, for as long as I've been doing my conversations individually,
what are they called?
And the live and direct chats,
and then also
live and direct chats, and then the Joe and Cat Chat series, Joe and Cat Chats. We actually filmed episode number 27 about 3 hours ago, and we're going to get that online later today. It's about vaccines and medical apartheid. There's a lot of information in there. It's a full 60-minute workout. We cover everything, so it's a really informative conversation. But if you go back through my Instagram, about a year and a half, almost 2 years now, if you look at all of these shows that I played on Saturday, you'll see me wearing a yellow vest. And what was that yellow vest significant of, or representing of? It was representing the Gilets Jaunes movement in France, which essentially was a massive workers' strike. They said, you know what, we're going to protest and fight for our rights. It's one thing to have, it's one thing to say, hey, Black Lives Matter. or we need to have some sort of coalition or group of people fighting for rights. But you know what will also be also effective? A worker strike. People shutting this country down. Shut this entire country down until the lawmakers in Washington, D.C. pay attention.
I saw
Shut
that
this
episode.
whole thing down.
That's one of the episodes I watched of yours recently where you were just really, laying into the general strike concept. And, I got I get fired up about that stuff. I'm sorry. I mean, it's just part of who I am. I've just read a lot of political revolutionary work, honestly.
Right.
But with that said, when I think about this reality that is the United States out there, I've seen a lot of it this year. We've seen so much of it we didn't want to see. Mm-hmm. I'm just like, these people don't have it. They can't do it, man. How the hell can we get people the motivation to get to just not be sitting in front of screens, and like doing whatever takes us away from all the shit that's scary and that hurts is just hard to get for, some of the strongest of us, I think.
And you do bring up a good point, and this is something that a person I mentioned 2 weeks ago when Kat and I filmed the previous episode of Joe and Kat Chat series. And it was about, the episode was called The Vocabulary of Politics. And we defined all of these political terminologies that people use, but they may not necessarily understand what the words mean. And one of the words that we talked about was the word solidarity. And with that was a Polish labor leader named Lech Walesa. If you remember him, Solidarity back in the early 80s. And he was an electrician that led a labor movement that led an entire worker strike in Poland that essentially overthrew the communist government of Poland at the time. And I said during that chat, America needs a Lech Walesa. America needs somebody that's not only, and bear in mind, Lech Walesa was an electrician, but he was able to have the type of intra-industry and inter-industry solidarity across various groups of labor to force a labor strike, a massive labor strike, solidarity. That is what we need right now. What we need are UPS parcel drivers. We need butchers at your local Safeways and other grocery stores. We need Amazon package handlers to walk off the job. I know United States Postal Service workers can't strike because they're government workers and they're not permitted to strike. But but we need electricians to shut it down. We need plumbers. We need your local HVAC technician. We need your local, your man and woman at the local produce stand. And we need people to just shut this country down until the politicians in Washington actually pay attention to what's happening right now. Because again, right now, we don't have representation for the downtrodden. We don't have representation for the impoverished. We don't have representation for the sick. I know later on in this conversation, we're going to talk about healthcare, and I'm going to really dig in on healthcare because of my education and stuff that I've done in the past. But what we need is to have this entire country. We need to have a labor-focused workers' strike.
And it does, as I asked you the question, yes, I actually it hadn't come to me the past week since I've been thinking about this. But at those movements that were successful at times, there was nobody doing it, and then one group did it. And they did it right, and they did it in a way that was loud and that they believed in, and it made a difference. And it started maybe another group doing it, and then it became there. I think there is a possibility of a domino effect when it comes to labor strikes and the idea of just and at this point, like, we know politics is not going to do it. Like, for them to do anything, voting for this person in this election, not going to happen. So in protesting, we've seen since the Occupy movement, for myself, literally since that day started until last year, we've seen protests not do it either. Man, I just like wanted to work, and it's just not the same place as it was in the 60s, this country. Like,
I agree.
So you can't mobilize we just don't have a weather underground, or do we? Is that what this is? No, I'm just kidding.
You know what?
I don't have like these strong, this is what they do with their lives. They're not like working their job 40 hours a week. They're getting out there putting their heads together, and they are mobilizing, and
the one person that is doing that right now is Christian Smalls. And Christian Smalls is that Amazon employee from Long Island, New York, that was fired because he blew the whistle on Amazon. Amazon executives tried to smear him, and now he's leading these sorts of worker strikes and rallies against Amazon. But to go along with your point, Wrench, and you bring up an excellent point, and I talked about this earlier on in my opening statement about the worker strikes that are taking place in India. Again, the farmers in India didn't start the strike. It was a group of other labor unions that came together and said, hey, you know what? We don't like the way we're being treated. We're going on strike. And the farmers were like, well, yo, you know what? We don't like the way we're being treated either. And if y'all want some roti, and if y'all want your chana masala and your tandoori chicken, yeah, you're going to make sure you give us what we want to. Okay. And guess what? There's a whole lot of basmati rice, and we can stay out in the fields for as long as we need to.
There's a whole lot of In-N-Out burgers. That's what
we can do that in India.
People.
So that's why they're able to shut it down in India. And that's why earlier today I was watching a couple an Indian news feed that I follow on my YouTube subscriptions. And they're talking about a hunger strike. There's a bunch of these Indian farmers that went on a hunger strike today. And they're shutting it down. And this is a type, and again, Kensington Von Badger with a brilliant comment. India, France, and countries like that don't have the same kind of individualism that we have in America. IMO, in my opinion. I agree. We need solidarity. We need a multi-labor-focused, industry-wide, labor-focused strike. Shut everything down for as long as we need to.
Santa.
I think, Joe, to your point, I think there's also an information barrier. You know, you're drawing attention to President Walesa a moment ago from Poland. And I had the honor to meet him. I believe it was somewhere around 2010, 2011 in Chicago. Chicago, wildly large Polish population.
Yep.
And he came in to be honored. I think he went to Springfield first, came up to Chicago. And I have, with the exception of Howard Dean, of all the foreign world leaders I've met, I've never met a more humble person, but it was almost like they didn't necessarily have a plan to have this great Nobel laureate arriving in Chicago to receive an award when there's opportunities to have him be in front of students and everything, because it's the kind of story of resilience and perseverance towards the goal that people like President Walesa actually embodies in being such a normal person. And that's the key aspect of it. He's a normal person. It changes the dynamic and let people realize that can be me as well. And I think that's one of the things that we often miss in modern leadership is the higher people get up in their specialty, the less time is spent on leadership development for those people, because the assumption is they're already at the top of their game. And that when the President Walesa comes in town, it becomes a media opportunity versus an educational opportunity. And that's where you take the finest leaders in the community, or more appropriately, sometimes the worst leaders in a community, put them down with one of the greatest leaders who won a Nobel Prize for his leadership, and give the opportunity to ask questions. More importantly, give the opportunity to pave a pathway towards outcomes. And I think that's where it takes the leaders in our communities to realize that we have the opportunity, and even in our brands, to create the opportunity. And that's the one thing we focus so much on the outcomes and everything. Sometimes we don't make the opportunity, and that's got to change.
Agree. And when we talk about a brand, there's a wonderful book you could read. It's called The Brand Gap, and it's by Marty Nussmeier. And the brand gap is essentially these three sentences: who are you, what do you do, and why does it matter? And I'm going to say that again, just in case anybody in the chat wants to take notes. Who are you, what do you do, and why does it matter? That's essentially the book. I just saved you 3.5 or 4 hours, and it's not a very big book. It's about 100 pages, size 12 or 14 font, Times New Roman. It's not a big book at all. But you bring up an excellent point. It's Marty Neumeier, and I said Nussmeier. I apologize. But yes, we have to create opportunities. And what I'm seeing now more than ever is that the best politicians don't start out as politicians, and they're not career politicians. I would make the argument that one of the best politicians we've had in recent vintage has been Jesse the Body Ventura. And Jesse Ventura, for damn sure, did not start out as a politician. He was a Navy SEAL, became a bodybuilder, then a professional wrestler, professional commentator, a wrestling commentator, than a mayor, than the governor of Minnesota. And there's a whole lot of people in Minnesota that said he was quite effective.
I couldn't agree more. Now he's down the conspiracy train, which I guess makes it perfect, right? But he was a heck of a leader. And when you look at a state like Minnesota, where he led, you're talking about a state where you have Minneapolis and St. Paul, which was at one point the cleanest community in the world. A lot of what you consider to be a privilege in certain areas of Minnesota. And you have the most, bottom line, one of the crazier people ever to enter into professional politics come and lead that state. He had wildly nuanced policies. He wanted to make some larger changes. The system didn't necessarily let it happen, but it proves that somebody like that can get elected in a conservative state and still make outcomes. That's the inspiration from him. And he's also an awesome guy, and he still cares just as much as he did then.
Yes. And when you talk about caring, I think being a Navy SEAL also might have played into it. Because when you're in the military, and my younger brother's retired Air Force, you not only fight for yourself, but you fight for the people around you. Because I guess when you're in conflict, when you're in battle, what you do, it also can save your life and somebody else's life. And it's that sort of solidarity. It's that sort of teamwork. It's that sort of willingness to sacrifice I'm gonna use a nice 50-cent word tonight. It's that level of altruism that leads to higher levels of political leadership. It's the willingness to see the best of everybody else and willing to make sure that you eat last instead of first. That is the ultimate sign of leadership. And the people who understand that are the people who have been the most effective leaders.
Thank you for that, man. I mean, let me just take a second and say I love you guys, and thank you for just helping me learn. It's good. And I want to ask you, Rue, to tell us, to bring it back to the topic we were trying to round out there. Like, I miss Denver a lot. I lived there for 3 years. This was a crazy year there. Like, I have just been shocked, and a lot of my friends got hurt this year there, and just seemed like, and I haven't been back, and it's been crazy. But so I want to give you a chance to maybe let us know a little bit about, like, are we seeing improvements there? What is happening on the ground there still? But I did want to give a shout out to my pops, Richard Garrett, the original, who's been chatting in here. He asked, why not you? And I think he meant like us, and maybe, chew on that, guys. And we, for the readers and just those of us that believe in this type of thing, like, why not us? Somebody's got to do this thing, because whoever's up there right now is not. So, but I'll turn it over to you, Rue, and you can tell us a little bit.
Absolutely. Well, I think that what's happening in Denver is very close to what is happening and has happened in many cities all over the country, especially as it relates to these thoughts and ideas about public safety. And obviously, we're seeing that the trickle-down effect doesn't work. And the philosophy of the trickle-down, of the idea of, letting philosophies trickle down doubly doesn't work. And we see that specifically when we heard, Barack Obama talk about how defund the police, turned off many Democrats. And, that, of course, speaks to the splintering in the parties. But what I think, to me, what I take out of that conversation the most is, like, number one, this is a rallying cry and a directive. We're not just saying, like, defund the police because it actually sounds catchy. We're saying defund the police because that's a directive for what we know can work and operate in these various cities. So in Denver specifically, in May, during the start of the second uprising, during the killing of George Floyd, many people, just like what was happening in Boston and all over the country and also the world, there were a lot of, like, very terroristic behaviors that happened to, people who were exercising their constitutional right to protest. And Denver has a Black mayor, and he is what they call, like, a strong mayor, meaning that the city's charter essentially gives him all the power. The police department has an opportunity to collectively bargain, but for the most part, the mayor is the person who, like, checks it off, and makes the list and makes the decisions. and I think that as a result of that, you know, we're talking about all these very specific things that people and communities need, like a stimulus check, we need healthcare, we need all these things. But the people also need a like certain level of morale that I don't think we are even close to healing, to getting back to the people. You know, we've been screwed by our local governments, we've been screwed by our federal governments, and people are pissed off. And quite frankly, it is truly a wonder that every single day, you know, there's not major action like what's happening in Portland, happening all over the country. And so when it comes to, I think, you know, long-term solutions, you know, I think, again, it just goes back to the idea of dismantling all of those systems. Like, we need to like abolish the police. You know, that is a perspective that.
Dang.
Hmm?
I said, oh, dang.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's yeah. So it's like, yeah, well, it's like, well, first of all, we were saying fuck the police. That's one. Then we said defund the police. And many of us feel like you can abolishing the police is probably the best thing you can do to heighten public safety. And those are truly radical ideas that we haven't gotten to yet, you know, just like Medicare for all or Medicaid for all is also a strikingly radical concept that many people feel is too radical to get behind. So, you know, I say that all these things, I said all that to say that there are direct connections between all of these issues. You know, you can absolutely tie the issues of, you know, social injustice and social inaction to these same, you know, principles and points about healthcare and all the other things that are sort of plaguing and creating disadvantages in our communities.
What I got a question, Ruth. What I find is when I look at Denver, I know you guys have awesome programs that are not hands-on law enforcement programs, meaning that, you know, there's some sort of first responder program to like help intercept some things. There are programs that are very new inside the police funded budget.
They only give them like $3 million.
That's what I don't get. Like, they market that as one of the things for why Denver should be getting more money, because obviously the state plays a lot of role in these instrumental programs that would actually solve some of the things you're drawing attention to are the things that don't have additional funding. And I find that interesting because I think you spend somewhere like $150 million plus in law enforcement in Denver, $3 million for alternative policing. You have a mayor in there that immediately shot down. I can't remember the name of the councilwoman there that presented the abolition.
Yeah.
Yes, immediately shot it down. But what didn't make sense is you're still sitting at a massive incarceration budget, a massive budget for law enforcement, $16 million for more things like we discussed the body cams and all that. But what it is you have a community that the evidence actually shows an alternative of value that does work, and they still don't do it.
Community. It's all the communities show. I mean, across the board, more policing does not prevent crime. The Independent Monitor's report that just came out of Denver, I watched him give the presentation twice, was absolutely devastating. Body cams are not working. Officers are not wearing identification, not identifying themselves, and they are fucking people up.
Wow. That's unacceptable. And that's where it comes down to policy, right? And that makes no sense to me. In law enforcement, I know if my mom would miss roll call or not wear something and all this, like, I mean, they would give her time off, all sorts of things. And it doesn't matter how many years of service. But I'm looking right there with the department funded that much. If there was, I think there was somewhere like 49 or 50 hands-on law enforcement activities with civilians in town that they have no footage of, right? And just imagine if all of those ended in a great bodily injury with no footage. It would be a national news story larger than anything ever, because that's a lot of people. 49, one is too many, right? But 49 is certainly too many. Now, what the argument for something like that is, well, 90+% of the times the body cams did effectively record things. But you know, when you're looking at numbers where 49 is still an existing number and that's somewhat acceptable and the only solution is $16 million, something's going wrong there.
What if the person is still dead? I mean, honestly, like Elijah McClain, they were wearing body cams and he's still dead. Like that's kind of the other point.
And what happened to those police?
I'll put in that, but because I know this is not a conversation about the police, but it's just difficult. Like, you know, it's difficult to talk about healthcare if you're not also talking about the devastating public health crisis that is murder by at the hands of police officers, like actual murder.
We're going to flip gears to healthcare, everybody, right now. We got a little bit of time left. I heard you saying maybe you wanted to not go down that road too hard, so we won't do that. And maybe Joe, I think I heard you volunteer you had something specific for this lined up, which I don't doubt.
Well, you know, and it's just to give just a brief background. I have one of my master's degrees is in a discipline of healthcare, so I understand the healthcare law a little bit better than most people walking the streets. And I talked about this on a recent chat where I said, hey, you know what? I'm going to make the case for every single American to get healthcare in the United States. And I talked about the situation that took place on July 17th, I think it was, in 2009 in Lincoln County, Montana. You're like, well, Joe, what happened in Lincoln County, Montana? Lincoln County, Montana was affected by the W.C. Clark vermiculite mine, which essentially poisoned the entire community, the entire county, with asbestos and mesothelioma. The federal government came in and said, hey, you know what? This is a health hazard, and we're going to do something about this. And we're going to change a section of the Affordable Care Act, Section 10323 of the Affordable Care Act, and then change Section 1881A of the Social Security Act to make sure that anybody that suffers from what's called an environmental hazard gets Medicare for all, as long as the federal government authorizes what's called an emergency declaration. And there's a specific definition for an emergency declaration in the Environmental Protection Agency. Okay, so we talked about environmental hazards. We talk about environmental hazards like asbestos and vehicle exhaust and certain pesticides. We talked about lead in the water, lead in our paint. I would certainly think that COVID-19, the coronavirus, is an environmental hazard, because an environmental hazard is anything that threatens public safety or causes actual damage to public safety and public health. So if the folks of Libby, Montana, or Lincoln County, Montana, really three towns, Libby, Montana, Eureka, Montana, and Troy, Montana, can get Medicare for all, Medicare Part A and Medicare Part B, which is inpatient coverage, hospital coverage, and outpatient coverage, medical coverage, for the rest of their lives, no questions asked, because of an environmental hazard. I would certainly think that, I don't know, 330 Americans that have been exposed to the COVID-19 should be eligible for Medicare for all. And so should people in Flint, Michigan with the lead in the water. So should people in Detroit, Michigan with lead in the water. So should people in Baltimore, Maryland with the lead paint crisis that's taking place there. Asbestos.
Who pays for this, Joe? Is this a government pay, or is this the private sector that's responsible for some of those, scenarios that caused it? Any idea?
Brother Chris, let me tell you, this is Medicare for all. This is the federal government that pays for this. This is right. I mean, I have a mother, father, stepfather. Go ahead, Rich.
Well, it's just very interesting to me that, say that is this, what you just described is happening. That means that this country knows how to give it to an individual. If anything, there's a little switch somewhere.
Yeah,
I like the idea of each of us got a switch on. Just start switching the people that need this thing more than anybody you could even imagine needs healthcare in America. Give them healthcare. You don't have to give the rest of us healthcare. Like, what the hell? I don't need, so many of us do not need it. If anything, why are we not fighting for those who do need it to get it? We don't need to do everybody. That's a little, clearly that can't happen. My man Bernie didn't get elected. So
bear in mind, Rich. This isn't just an individual. This is a specific county in Montana that got this coverage. And there are three large towns: Libby, Montana, Eureka, Montana, Troy, Montana. We're talking maybe 16, 17,000 people. But everybody in that town, in that county, has health care for the rest of their lives because of this environmental exposure.
What about Flint? They don't have it in Flint. They probably should.
But here's the thing. Obama and I think the governor of Michigan at the time had a separate plan for that, but it had different requirements, and it only lasted for a specific time. And after that, the plan went away. Okay. Now, again, if we had politicians that actually were forward thinking and thought about the people, again, I'm no politician. I just happen to know the Affordable Care Act a little bit better than most, and I understand that there's a couple of regulations that are sitting out there. Why? And again, this worked for Libby, Montana. You can go on the internet right now, www.ssa.gov/Libby, Libby, and everything that it's happening in Libby, Montana that the Social Security Administration is doing for them is right there. And you can look up Section 1881A, just type in Section 1881A Social Security Act, and you can read it. It's about 3 or 4 pages, and it talks about everything that everybody gets. And everybody,
Joe, on this, when you're looking at this town, this is for life. You're saying for the rest of their life, they're on Medicare for life.
Life. Medicare for all. Medicare.
Mm-hmm. So it's possible. A switch, like Grant said, a switch was flipped. Everyone got it.
Give it to them.
This was literally Max Baucus, who I think was the senator at the time, saying, hey, look, my constituents are suffering with asbestosis and mesothelioma. They need health care because this is a public health hazard. This is an environmental disaster. This is an environmental crisis. Okay? They looked in Section 1881A and said, hey, you know what? Yeah, Medicare coverage for individuals exposed to environmental health hazards. Asbestos is an environmental health hazard. Yeah, Medicare for all, fire away. That's what happened.
See, what I think is super interesting about this is I think people confuse the cost of healthcare with the cost of the healthcare system. The healthcare system has all of the cost of insurance industry, all of these elevated things. It's a completely competitive market. If you were actually to focus on solving the healthcare issues of people, it not only becomes dramatically cheaper instantaneously because you're focused on outcomes, but then you're also eliminating some of this gap. Now, I've learned this weekend, and Joe, I'd love your comment on this. I found out that the reason why there's such an access gap to, let's say, vaccines, whether it be overseas, various communities in Africa, whether it be in certain parts of America, it doesn't matter, is because of clinical trials. And the simple fact that you have brands like Pfizer, who are now to the top of the table, a lot of federal dollars that will get something to market with 1 to 4 clinical trials. Now, the problem with that, when you look at a brand like Merck, who takes things to trial with 16 clinical trials to market, in the difference between the 1 to 4 clinical trials and 16 is the idea of having a vertical that is for Black Americans, people with African lineage, Asian lineage. So because they don't want to get sued as healthcare providers, they need to make sure the evidence works for all the demographics. And because brands are so interested in getting to the cash commoditized market of healthcare with their solution, they forego all of the solutions around the world that could be done for just a couple extra months. That blows my mind. And I know it trickles into our streets here in America, Joe. Is there a solution for something like this?
That's a great question. I think the solution is... Yes. Yeah, no, I know we got to get going soon, but I know the solution for this is a single payer healthcare system. Because again, if you have a single payer healthcare system, you immediately remove the middleman or the middle person in this instance, because we want to be gender neutral. And that's going to be the health insurance companies. You eliminate them because the health insurance companies are the reason why the healthcare industry is so expensive. And again, and I brought up this example in a couple of different situations when discussing healthcare. What you want is healthcare, but the vehicle for healthcare is health insurance. When we were all 16 years old, nobody was excited about, hey, wow, I got I got car insurance. Nobody was pumped up about car insurance, but everybody's pumped up to drive the car, which is ultimately what you want. You want to drive the car, but in order to drive the car and be safe while you're driving it and have the necessary coverages as prescribed by law, you need to buy health insurance. This is no different. Nobody is jumping up and down saying, wow, I got great health insurance and I'm only paying a $5,000 deductible instead of a $10,000 deductible. No one's jumping up and down and screaming about that. But what you want is the health care. But unfortunately, with regards to getting health care, the vehicle or the avenue for health care is health insurance. So what we need to do is streamline the pathway from user, customer, recipient to the actual tool that we need, which is health care. Unfortunately, there's a massive wall in between that straight line from patient, recipient, user to product. And it's a massive wall called health insurance. And then there's a barbed wire fence on the top of that called lobbyists. and then then it's wrapped with electrical wire, and that wrapping on electrical wire is politicians that are on the take.
And what I think is interesting is a word you said at the beginning, and you referenced it as single payer.
Yes.
I think people are scared of words like that, and they're thinking that it means something. But what you said that was prolific was it's the idea of removing the middleman, the middle person, whatever. And just like in Denver, where they put together these amazing guides to kind of explain what Bill 3542 is, in meaning this complicated political jargon was turned in. This is what it means for your town. All of your rent's going to go up when they build a row of townhomes right here, and you're not going to be able to use downtown. Mm-hmm. So if we find a way to say, hey, listen, nobody in America is going to want, unless you're the middle person, is going to argue with the fact that we need to remove the middle person from various things, especially when the middle person does nothing but in the interest of organization add monumental expenses to the equation. So I think that's one of the things right away that just information about single payer is not a Democrat initiative. It's just like was listed in the comments, the county hospital system. A lot of people don't realize that when Obamacare came and that particular thing came to pay, Cook County was spending like $1 billion funding the people each year coming in that don't have health insurance and things of this nature. So what was interesting is that a group called the Center for Health and Justice, Treatment Alternatives for Communities, for drug court and all that, they went into the jail system and helped sign people up for the Affordable Care Act, because they knew when they came out of the jail system, not only would they have real insurance, but it would also save the county of Cook, which needs to have the money to actually facilitate preventative health care, from having this massive influx of their hospitals being filled with people that could have been diverted. That was brilliant. I'd love to see things like that happen, because the more people that you have on the Affordable Care Act, the closer you are to a single payer mechanism. And that's where the population needs to fall in line. And sometimes you have to come to them to get them to sign up. I never signed up. I got penalized. I have not had insurance. Okay, here I am sitting here. I am one of those ones that don't. And that's on me, because I can do it. That's my fault. But I would like to make sure that people can get to people that can't do it themselves, because those are the ones that matter more than my laziness.
Understood.
You're muted, Ranch.
Dang. Apparently that's the phrase of 2020. So, we've got it in there. But, I know we've got I think we've only got a couple minutes left here with a few of our guests. I did want to give a shout out to Kat Wells. You're here with us. Look at this there. Kat is also a frequent guest, and she's very right about that. Canada, universal healthcare, a lot of countries. Don't forget about
Tommy Douglas in Canada.
I wanted to. I know you guys. I mean, if any of you are just like, boom, I got to get off right this second, go right ahead. But I was just going to read something that I wrote last night as a way to round this out. It's something I was feeling. So I put up a meme on my Instagram. I made it today or yesterday. It's a big firework exploding, and it's a Ram Dass quote. It says, "Birth, death, and suffering all bring us to the very edge of what our minds can understand." And so I wrote this last night. Let's see. In the last month, we have seen this country's confirmed COVID cases reported, over 5 million people in the U.S., be many times higher than any other 30-day period this year. It is becoming more and more common for all of us to hear of our family and friends having it. It's hard to talk about what some of them are facing and how it makes us feel to know. It makes us angry, sad, disappointed, annoyed, confused, doubtful, and at times heartbroken. This is affecting our mental health, and we have to talk about it as often as we can to give ourselves a chance to heal as we go. It's happening this year as so many of those other scary societal outcomes seem to have come to a head all around our streets and across the web. This emotional hardship is our collective burden, plaguing those both righteous and hateful. It feels so big now, it's almost like it's new. But we've all navigated these fearful waters since the turn of the millennium. Hold yourself up, support yourself, love your loss, love your fears, and know them. We cannot give up this opportunity, this responsibility we have to help ourselves endure. There are many out there that we know and will know who need our strength and wisdom to help them make it through. Purpose in this life is here for us if we need it. We all know how substance abuse, psychosis, and suicide have plagued our people for decades. It's been the silent war we didn't know we signed up to fight in. Right now, there are people close to us struggling that are in need of our time, effort, and compassion. We should never give up on them, always forgive them, and love them however we can safely. This stuff is the hardest stuff, y'all. But you are surviving it today, and you did yesterday. Know that you want to tomorrow and keep it moving. Work hard to be fit in mind, body, and heart, to be able to help everyone we can do to help everyone we can do what they do the same. Be aware, third eye stare, never fear, even while staring at oblivion. Love always. And a little Grateful Dead. Every silver lining's got a touch of gray. I will get by. I will survive. And we get sappy here on Fear and Loving. You know, we don't have loving in here for
Powerful, man.
no reason.
Very powerful, Richard.
Yeah, I got a couple, you know, I've just been seeing friends, roommates, family. I mean, this month it's like people are just like the holidays, they're scared to go home. I can't go home. So yeah.
Thank you
Very
for
wonderful.
writing that.
Yeah, you guys,
That was really
you know,
beautiful.
as you come on here, feel free to share. You can always let me know. We can have you guys share anything you want, you know. And there goes my pops. What's up? We gotta have Dad. We'll go get you on here next time. It's just like, you know.
Yeah, that was really sweet. Yo, listen, it was really great to chat with you guys. I, as always, say that I enjoy these conversations because I love to listen and I love to just hear everyone's perspective. And I hope that we continue to do it as, you know, the times get crazier. I hope that we can always find time to come back to this space. So thank you so much for having me and for you guys being so awesome.
Thank you, Rue. You're the best. We love you.
True. We're gonna have you back.
Woo!
Bye.
Okay, now then there's they changed our. We're just gonna
Changed
see.
it up.
And Joe, you're what's your timeline like? Man, we're very. Let's see if we can get us unsmoked. Okay, there we go.
There we go. Now. It's a little Hollywood Squares style. You know what I'm saying?
Now I'm definitely, again, still with three people, the most uncool looking individual
No,
I
man.
was before. Here we are with three. I'm over it.
It's all good, brother. It's all good. It's all good. I know earlier on we talked about police. We talked about policing because I got to get going soon. I got to FaceTime my little baby in about a few minutes before she goes off to sleep. You know, but I want to make sure that everybody understands what I'm going to say next. You know, earlier on this year we had a Frenchman of Algerian descent utter these words. He said, "Je suffoque." Je suffoque. Earlier this year, we had a Colombian man say, "Me estoy ahogando." Me estoy ahogando. Earlier on this year, we had a man who said the same three words that we just heard in those other two languages. He said, "I can't breathe." He said, "I can't breathe." Je suffoque. It's a Frenchman named Cedric Chouvet who was strangled and killed by police in France. And he was, and his last words were, "Je suffoque." I'm suffocating. I can't breathe. Javier Ordóñez, 41-year-old lawyer who was killed by police, killed by a chokehold. And he said, "Me estoy ahogando," which means I am drowning in Spanish, but essentially I can't breathe. And for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, we heard George Floyd with a knee on his neck saying, "I can't breathe." What I'm saying, the reason why I brought up those three examples, and I'm sure there are more, is because this struggle of police violence is not just relegated to the United States. It is international. And we must continue to internationalize the struggle and continue to internationalize the fight for humanity, freedom, equality, and survival.
Super powerful. Yet again, in different
I needed
languages.
to hear that out loud. I needed somebody to say that to me today.
Say what again?
I needed to hear that. Or I needed to be reminded. It's just crazy how like I didn't expect you to say those words, and I heard them, and I hadn't thought about them in too long. And it has been a hell of a year. You know, I've never felt the way the way that the emotion that comes out of me from what went down there and everything you're describing that is still going down. It's a lot. So
Ranch, I'll just say I gained some perspective right there that I wouldn't expect to get either. I'm listening as it's unfolding, and super powerful. And what I love, Joe, about you, and is the person you are, Ranch, you as well, is, we all tend to think that, we're different because we're disruptive. We're disruptive in things. We want to make changes. And really, as opposed to celebrating what makes us all different, it's what makes us all the same right here. And what I love hearing is authenticity. And I promise authenticity is the new disruptive. It is something that isn't necessarily apparent everywhere in society right now. But you see, if we all focus on the things that we all cherish, that we authentically find to be true to ourselves, we stop focusing on just victories. We start spending time reacting to failures and working with people that also believe in the same thing, and learn more than you teach, and teach only when you've learned. I think we can make those changes you described tonight, Joe, and the changes that Rue drew attention to tonight, and Ranch, the things that you tell me every single opportunity you get to in our day-to-day conversations of working together. So I'm just thankful to have the opportunity to be in rooms and gain perspectives from people like both of you. And I hope to have the opportunity again. And I appreciate all the comments and questions from your listeners here. Ranch, I think this is a fantastic opportunity for people to learn perspectives and diversity. So I'm super thankful.
Chris, and you bring up a good point, and let's not forget, it was about 25 years ago. You had a couple of rappers from Queensbridge Projects in New York City, Mobb Deep. First line of Shook Ones, he said, "I got you stuck off the realness."
Woo!
That.
Love it. My theme song tomorrow. Today, my theme song for all DJ Joe Nice. Tomorrow, I'm rocking that all day, Joe. So,
I got you stuck off the realness. You heard of us. First line of the Shook Ones Part 2. So yes, authenticity is the new currency. There it is. To all the killers and $100 billers. Y'all know what it is.
This is like the after party. Yeah. I like how we do that. Yeah, it's nice. All right. We're gonna leave them on. Let's see.
There it is.
Hold on.
Dave Matthews never came out with anything in this genre, right?
Nah. They didn't hit like this.
All right, that's fair, Joe.
They didn't hit like this.
Tried. Shout out to Boylan Catholic High School in Rockford, Illinois, for my Dave Matthews Band roots, and to those listeners I see online.
Wow. Dang, you really are a nerd.
I love it. I was a college DJ, right? So I got to be in the instrument, but no Joe Niceness in me. So
no, it's all good, buddy.
Appreciate
It's all good. It's all good.
Well, I hope to be on the show again, Ranch, from Joe and both of you guys.
Yeah, we're gonna have. Yeah, I mean, I think that's all.
John Bambino.
I think that's all it takes. Is somebody's just got to be like, hey, I want to get on there and talk, and that's you guys in the comments as well. We can bring up to 10 people in these conversations just like this. And I think that would be pretty crazy.
Flick of the wrist.
We're just going to see who will jump on the bus, who's going to, we got a lot of people that I could probably come bring back around. We could call upon Snoop-a-Loop. I hear he's available.
Why not?
I don't know why I put him first.
Why not?
And for those of you who got Emerge conference this week from the cannabis space, Snoop Dogg's at it. And one clarification, Joe Nice did correct me in private chat. It's Tom Brady, not Peyton Manning, that is somewhat using his PPE money or whatever it's called.
Oh, it's Tom Brady. He would.
I apologize. My apologies to Peyton Manning.
It's all good. It was actually
me, Peyton.
It was $969,000 to his supplement company TB12, and he ended up buying a yacht.
I got no comments on that. I mean,
Cowboys.
I feel bad that was the decision-making logic cortex process that went on there, but we'll address that on a future show, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure we will.
All right. Well, I got last words for me. Fear and Loathing on the campaign trail 72.
Perfect.
I'm going to do excerpts from that, but I'm just kind of revisiting and, thanks a lot for joining us. Fear and Loving, Real Fear and Loving is the handle on Facebook, on Instagram. We don't have it on YouTube yet, but soon enough, go subscribe to us on YouTube. You got to search Fear and Loving. You'll find a video. Just, subscribe to us that way.
Yep.
Also on Twitch. I think we're live on Twitch right now as well. I completely forget about that network.
Am I making video game money? Is that what's happening right now? If I'm live on Twitch, it comes to the house, right? Video game money. I'm hearing about this esports, so I'm in.
Yeah, I'm World of Warcrafting lately at night. I'm actually going to do that probably after this. So, yeah. Well, thanks a lot, guys, and happy holidays.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Take care.
Let me know.
Yep. We'll do it again.
See ya. There you go.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Peace.
Yep. Thanks, guys. I'm Ranch. This has been Fear and Loving. We've been doing these video podcasts for a while, and follow us on everything. And we do have fearandloving.com on the way. Got a team working on the blog. We're going to have some writing opportunities. Honestly, right now you could reach out to me at ranchardguerra@gmail.com. So that's ranchardguerra@gmail.com with any topics, writing topic ideas, column ideas. We're open to suggestions at this point, but should be coming in January with that. And yeah, big love, everybody. Thanks.